Tenelwood School is a school for autistic children and young adults, and we have set this podcast up to provide our pupils with a fantastic opportunity to develop a range of skills whilst interviewing top sportsmen and women from a variety of different sports. We have a slightly different episode for you today on the TWS Sports Podcast. We are going to be focusing on the Football World Cup, which starts soon, and we are joined by three special guests. We are represented here by 3 out of the 4 teams in Group B. We are joined by former Welsh midfielder Dave Edwards, former Premier League manager Dave Jones, and former USA goalkeeper Brad Friedel. How are you all today?
Great, thank you.
All good.
Very well, thank you.
Okay, I have a quick question for the two Daves. Do we have any nicknames we can call you two, or is that going to get confusing?
in football, I was always called Edo, if that helps. But or you can just say Dave. Or just say Dave Edwards. That's fine.
Okay, so Edo and
Dave.
Well, I've been called many things, so Dave's fine by me.
Okay, Edo and Dave. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Before we start, I presume you all know each other. You must have played against each other a number of times in the Premier League, or your paths must have crossed somehow. Any memories of playing against each other?
Well, of course, I remember playing. My teams playing against Brad's and Dave's teams in the past, but I haven't got any specific memories about it. I hope I did win when I played against the pair of them, but I'm not sure if I did or whatever. So, but no, I definitely crossed paths with Edo and Brad in the past.
We played against each other. You were at Wolves, I think, when we played against each other. Wouldn't that be right?
Yes. Yeah. In the Premier League, probably with Wolves, it was between 2009, 10 to about 2012. So I'm sure you was in your prime then, Brad.
Well, I was in when was it there? I was Blackburn. I was probably at Villa. I was getting near 40 at the time. Still plugging away.
Before we start as well, please feel free to ask questions to each other about the World Cup, or feel free to continue the conversation and follow up with your own questions. We don't just want this to be us asking all the questions, so please, if you have a question or something to say, then please ask. If you want to debate over a certain player or team or something, then please do.
Yes, this is a conversation, not an interrogation. As Adam should learn by now. Okay, we're going to start off with your World Cup memories as a child. Is there a certain World Cup memory that you can think of? For any of you?
Go on, do you want me to go first? Because I mean, I've not played. I played in a Junior World Cup when I was captain of the England under 18s. But never played at senior level. Under 21 and under 18s, I was capped at. But my memories of probably of the team that should have won something, which was the likes of when they had Rooney and Owen and people like that playing, Lampard and Gerrard. But we got beaten in the semi-finals, really. In quarter-finals, we were getting beaten. But my memories of the team that should have done better than what they did, really. I was over in America watching the last World Cup, so it was good to see. But my memories isn't of playing, but it is more of watching probably an England team that should have done more than what they did, to be honest.
I've never played in a World Cup either, but this will be Wales's first one since 1958. So I've got no real Wales memories, but my first one I can remember watching myself was Italia 90. That was my first real football memory. Saw Gaza playing so well for England in that tournament. I used to have an old videotape of it, and I used to just rewatch it all the time. So that's where my love for football first came from a World Cup.
Wait, Italian? Aren't you Welsh?
Yeah, but the World Cup.
Brad, USA went 40 years without reaching a World Cup. So for you, the first World Cup would have seen with USA would have been the 1990 World Cup in Italy. What do you remember of that World Cup and watching it as a fan?
Yeah, so my first memory goes back 1982 and then vividly 86 in Mexico. And that was where Diego Maradona scored that unbelievable goal, actually against England. All with
Thanks for that. Thanks for that, Brad.
Yeah, you got
Oh
it.
no.
Only touching the ball about 75 times with his left foot, tearing through the entire squad, and then the hand of God. Um, uh, so it's football in America. We didn't even have a professional league at the time when I was growing up. So when a World Cup came around, in certain areas, it was even hard to watch a match. Even in the 1990 World Cup, it was a bit better because we were in there. I was friends with the goalkeeper who played. I was in with the Olympic team at the time. It was under 23. So I like Tony Meola played in the 1990 World Cup, and Dave Vinoli, who went to the same university as me, was there. So I started to know personally some of the players that were playing in the 1990 World Cup, and we made for mainly amateur players, we made a pretty good account of ourselves. I think we only lost to Italy 1-0. I think Czechoslovakia at the time, they beat us quite badly. And then I forget what the result was against Austria, but I think we were competitive in 2 of the 3 games. Then we go to 1994. So I was part of the 94, 98, and 2002 squads, all completely different for me based on playing in them. For one, in 1994, I was the number 2 and I didn't get on the pitch, but just how football was growing in the U.S. That all 3 World Cups were different because in 1994, even though it was in the U.S., it was predominantly a foreign tournament, and there's more fans for the opposition than there were for us. And then 98, the sport grew again. In 2002, in Japan and Korea, all of a sudden fans were waking up at ungodly hours of the morning to watch us play. And football really took off, and we made it to the quarterfinals. And against Germany, we lost, and the man of the match was Oliver Kahn, their goalkeeper. So we made a really good account of ourselves in 2002 World Cup. We had a lot of players by that time playing around the European leagues and top European leagues. So we became very competitive. We fast forward to today. We have a strong squad it'll be a match for Wales and a match for England if everyone's fit.
It's even worse for Wales, I'm afraid, Dave. The last time Wales qualified for a World Cup was 1958 in Sweden. Sadly, I could not ask you about that World Cup as you were not born.
Nope.
However, when you were a child in the 90s and 2000s, Wales were going through some really tough times. What are your memories of watching Wales as a child?
Not great, not great.
Oh.
We had good players. We really did. The likes of Ian Rush and Dean Saunders, players like that. So it was exciting. Ryan Giggs, of course, but never ever got close really to getting to a World Cup. There was close to a Euros in 2004 when they lost in a playoff, but to a World Cup in my lifetime, not really. Maybe when I was very young, they had a playoff game where they missed a penalty, but. So I've never known it. I didn't think I'd see it in my lifetime. As a player, we thought we had a chance in 2018. We played in the group. We did quite well, and it went down to the last game in the group. We played Republic of Ireland, and we needed to beat Republic of Ireland at home to get to a playoff game, and we ended up losing 1-0, and that was bitterly disappointing. And that was kind of one of my last games for Wales. I always wanted to play at a World Cup, but I'm just so glad now that the team's finally got there and we get to enjoy it, and I can't wait to start watching it.
The World Cup has been full of amazing times and difficult times for England. They won the World Cup in 1966. Dave, I know you would have only been a young boy, but do you have any memories of watching England win that World Cup?
Me, yes. I watched it with my father and my brothers. I was only young, but I still remember England winning it. I mean, it became a cross to bear, really, because since then, that's the only thing that everybody ever speaks about, is the last time England won a tournament was in '66. So they've had to carry that around for many, many years. We thought a couple of years ago that we were actually going to win something, but lost on penalties again. So I think at the end of the day, it's you said to Dave, I think trying to get to the World Cup once they've achieved it, which they have done now, it's like a big weight that's lifted from the team itself. Same with America, it's once you've achieved that, then it becomes as if you're expected to get through to the next tournament and the tournaments after that. I think with England itself, because of winning the World Cup once, there's always been that pressure on the players that they've now got to go and do it again, and that becomes another battle within a battle itself, really. But no, I don't remember much about the game, but I remember that everybody, like the last time we got to a final where the whole country seemed to shut down and nobody, everyone was indoors watching it and hoping and praying that we would win another tournament. But I do think we've got a chance this time round. I think it's got a tall order because there's many good teams, but I think we've got as good a chance as anybody else, if I'm being fair.
Moving on to your experiences at major tournaments, Brad and Dave, you have played at either a World Cup or a European Championship with your countries. Can you tell us what it is like in the build-up to a major tournament?
Right, you can go first.
Want me to go first?
Yeah.
So our season. So when I was playing in the Premier League and then building up to a World Cup, MLS's season was still going on over here. So it was a different build-up for the players that were playing in Europe and the players that were playing in inside the domestic league over here. A great thing for me, especially if I go to the 2002 World Cup, Bruce Arena was very relaxed about us coming in and after a long season and sort of getting our bodies mentally and physically prepared so we could play a lot of golf. We could relax a lot by the poolside and things of that nature. We didn't have the media scrutiny that some of the other nations had, where they were picking on our every movement. So the first week or two after the season ended was really, I'll say this as I'm sitting here bald, but let your hair down type of moment. I remember the build-up being quite relaxing. And then we would have the MLS players, the domestic players come that were joining the squad. They would join us. And then after about 2 weeks, then we really got down to it. And it was then a mini preseason. So it really exciting times. And while we were on American soil before we went to Korea, Japan, you sort of feel like you're preparing for a World Cup, but not really. Once you touch down, then you feel it. And back in 2002, the security that we had because of what was going on in the world was incredible. I mean, everywhere we went, we had armored vehicles in the front and the back, and 4 Chinook helicopters above us on each side of our bus, and we had never witnessed or been a part of anything like that as American players. So it was all a bit surreal from that standpoint, but once we touch ground over there, you play a couple of friendlies, then it's one of the most exhilarating feelings out that you can have as a footballer, to walk out. Portugal was our first game, and to walk out against this star-studded Portuguese team and have us up 3-0 after like 23 minutes was one of the best euphoric feelings that you can have in football.
I was the same, just really, really excited, and it was Wales's first time qualifying for a tournament since 1958, so it was huge for the nation. Don't think there was much expectation, so we just wanted to really enjoy it. I think leading into it, I was more worried about being fit. I was that scared of missing the tournament with an injury, and I imagine a lot of the players will be like that at the moment, not wanting to get injured in their last game before the tournament, because these are once in a lifetime experiences and you don't want to miss it. So I remember being quite edgy about that. And then it was just trying to, for myself personally, just find a way that I can get on the pitch to do as well as I can in training and make sure I'm in the manager's thoughts. But yeah, the overriding emotion was just pure excitement. I was just so happy to be selected first and foremost, but then to have this opportunity to play in a competition which you dream of as a kid, and it's sort of the absolute pinnacle of a player's career to play at a major tournament. So yeah, I was excited.
Dave, you must have managed a number of players who have played in major tournaments, either World Cups, Euros, African Cup, or of Nations, etc. As a manager, do you notice a difference in these players in the lead up to a tournament? Because things like fear of injury, nerves might come into play.
Yeah, I think Dave's just answered that. Really, that few games before they're due to go, you do see a sort of tendency. Players don't want to get injured. It's not that they're not trying. That's just a natural occurrence, really. That players are always going to be fearful of getting an injury. You know, the last game or the game before they're due to travel. My recollection of the African players were always difficult to get back from tournaments. So we always used to send one of the staff to go and watch the game and make sure that they came back, because otherwise they went on another holiday for a couple of weeks, even when the tournament had finished. But the majority of the time, I would think you do notice that players do have a tendency they don't want to get injured. And of course, you would hate to a player to get so close to be traveling and then pick up an injury, and that does happen. You've seen that over many tournaments. But even in cup finals, even if you're in an FA Cup final or a League Cup final, you do see players do sort of tend to back off a little bit, and it's trying to keep that going. They're not pulling out or whatever, but it's quite understandable that you do not want to miss one of the biggest if not the biggest tournament in the world. And I think that must be a major factor to any coach, any player, that you don't want to pick up an injury, certainly when you're so close. And you know, England have just lost Chilwell, and Brazil have lost Coutinho, and that. You know, so it must be a big fear for a player, and I'm sure that's what Dave and Brad, because they've been in them tournaments, it must be very difficult. You want to go in and play your best and keep playing your best because you want to get selected, but also that fear must be there.
As a player, how much does it play on your mind about getting injured before a major tournament, especially this year where we stop the season and immediately go into a World Cup? Dave, I know you had a bad injury leading up to the Euros in 2016 as a player. It must be in the back of your mind when a World Cup is around the corner.
Yeah, so I broke my foot in the end of the January before the tournament in the summer, and as soon as I did it, I knew I broke a bone, and I was asking the physio as soon as I got on the treatment table. I was playing away at QPR and got into the dressing room straight away. I got my phone out with my calendar and I said, "How long is this going to be?" And he said, "Oh, it's going to be 12 weeks if it goes well." Straight away I was looking, and that kind of got me back about 2 or 3 games before the end of the season. So that laser focused me with my rehab. I've never been so dedicated to football as what I was for those 12 weeks, because I was going to give it my absolutely everything to make sure that I was in the best place possible to make sure I was at a tournament. So yeah, it's nerve-wracking. And when you do go down and get those moments, you really do fear. But I say it's you've got to try and go into football matches not thinking about that, because more often than not, when you start to pull out of tackles and things like that, you end up getting hurt a little bit more because you're not braced for it properly. So you've got to try and forget that when you go out on the pitch, but I'd be lying if it wasn't in the back of your mind.
Yeah, every major event that I was a part of, with the Olympics on top of that, we had a big injury. Whether it's Chris Armas doing his ACL, Steve Cherundolo, who just won the league over here, was a manager now with LAFC. I think his was an ACL while we were over in Korea, Japan. I remember a player at the Olympic team. None of you will know his name. His name was Rhett Hardy, but he went through 2 years of qualification, 2 year traveling everywhere around Central America, Mexico, South America with us, and injured his back the day before we were going over to Barcelona, the Olympics. That's just part and parcel of the game. What I would add is this World Cup, which is going to be a shame, I think will probably be the most injury hit World Cup that we have because of when it is. Players are playing all the way up until 7 or 8 days before the first game, and I think we'll still see a couple drop out with even if you get the odd hamstring, that's going to knock you out at this stage. Will knock you out of the World Cup. So you can't let up. Like what Dave said, you can't go in and do your trainings and games apprehensive and play not to get injured, because then you're likely to get an injury. But injuries are just something that occurs. So it's a terrible thing. Must be it never happened to me, thank goodness. But it must be a terrible thing to deal with as a player if you miss out through injury on a world event.
Okay, Brad, football, or as you call it, soccer, in the
Football.
USA is becoming more well known. A member of top players such as David Beckham, Steven Gerrard, Gareth Bale,
Gareth Bale.
Bale, and more have played in America. Do you think the improvement in the MLS is having a positive impact on the national team?
Now it is, yeah. It wasn't always. It was a double-edged sword. When salaries increased over here, some players opted to stay over here, but the level wasn't as good as the leagues over in Europe. It's getting better and better now. So now, if a player chooses to stay over here, they can have a very good career and help out the national team.
Okay.
You mentioned his name, David Beckham. He was the best signing that ever occurred for the United States, and he was at the end of his playing career. I don't mean what he did on the pitch as much, but because of how good he is off the field, how good he is with kids and fans and the public and media, and how big he actually was. That, because I'm not for signing older players when they're at the end of their career for the league, but he put this league onto a different stratosphere of notoriety. He really did, and he helped out so much with owners believing in the product, with sponsors believing in the product. Now he's a part owner of the Inter Miami team. I live in Miami now, so I see what kind of a pull he has, because Florida is notorious for not having good fan base. And because he's involved, they get, even when they're doing poorly, they get fans. He has been probably the most important player signing of all time in the MLS. For probably if you ranked 10 items, the 10th is probably him on the field playing. He has so many other reasons why it's helped the league. So yes, the league over here is getting better and better. It's not the Premier League. Not close to the Premier League yet. We still have a couple of decades at least to go before we can get somewhere close to that. But it's getting better, and players. You'll see the U.S. team. You watch the game against Wales and England. We're a competitive group now, and a lot of those players started over here in MLS.
I think, Brad, when you look back over the years, the players that have played in America, I think the big difference when you talk about David Beckham, I think it stopped becoming like a gimmick, didn't it? Because you've had Pele, you've had some men, Beckenbauer, more, some unbelievable players. But I think it was more of a gimmick. Now I think since David Beckham's been over there, as you said, it's become more professional within the football world. And I travel a lot to America, holiday a lot. The biggest thing I've noticed, certainly over the last 10 years, is you're seeing more and more football pitches around all the different states, where before it used to be a baseball or, the American football posts up. Now you are actually seeing a lot of football pitches and goals. I do a lot within the academies in Cairo and America, and it's becoming as big as the other sports now, isn't it? Really, and I think that's the impact that probably Beckham and the players that are following him now are having.
Yeah, and the owners are now bought in, and one of the reasons you see the football pitches all over the place is because they're putting the money into the grassroots. So it's, they started at the top. They had to start a league, so they started with the first teams. Now the infrastructure within the academies are getting better. Coaching education's getting better. The salary caps are growing. They're able to have really talented squads. And once 2026 comes and we have the World Cup here, then there's going to be another billion and a bit invested in the sport, and then we're starting to get somewhere. What we really need, the last piece of the puzzle over here, we need to have some sort of a Champions League type format. So we really have to get a part of the Copa Libertadores or Copa Sudamericana and link up with the top South American nations, with Mexico, with Central America. Then hopefully our top teams can go play Boca Juniors, for instance. That's a top game. Yeah, and we can attract some more top players.
Is the pressure of playing in a major tournament different from the pressure of playing in a Premier League or Championships League?
Champions League.
Champions League, sorry.
But for me personally, I felt it's a different type of pressure, but I think it's more you're carrying the weight of a nation on your shoulders, and
that's heavy.
I think that I think you do feel that. I think it's more you want to go out there and do your best, but you also in a sort of knockout competition like the Euros or the World Cup, you're one mistake away from costing your country that, and that's a big responsibility, even more so for Brad, who played in goal. Sort of once you make a mistake in goal, then it usually ends up in the back of your net. Whereas me as a midfielder, it wasn't quite like that. But I definitely felt a pressure, but I felt really privileged to have that pressure. 11 players will get chosen to start a game for their country. And for you to be on that team sheet, there is pressure, but you welcome it because it's you say you're at the absolute pinnacle and it's a real privilege. So yes, but you welcome it.
I think it's to play. I mean, as I said earlier on, I only got youth and under 21 internationals, but I think it's such an honour to represent your country, and I think that disappeared for a while, for a few years, but now I think it's back now, and I think that if you're representing your country at the highest level, which is the World Cup, then basically that's an unbelievable achievement as a player personally, because as Dave said, you are representing the whole nation, and that's nothing to be discarded. That is an unbelievable achievement. So anybody who goes to a World Cup, and I hold my head, I tilt my cap to the two boys there, Brad and Dave, because they've done that, and it's there's no better feeling than putting on a national shirt. I know it's putting on a club shirt is fantastic, but to actually put on a national shirt and represent your country, I know even at the level that I played at, was an unbelievable feeling, and I'll never forget that. And I've still got my caps and my suit from under 18s. I've still got the beige suits that my dad and my mum and dad kept it for many years in a wardrobe. So all the memorabilia from such a tournament is you will keep, and no one can take that ever away from you, and that's the achievement that comes with it.
For me, the pressure in a playing for the US was less than playing in the Premier League. It just because of the media, the scrutiny the British players are under when you go to the major events, from the fan support to the media and now social media today, was a lot bigger than the US. So the pride of going out and representing your country was immense, but it was such a nice feeling not to have all the pressure. As Dave hinted at it, as a goalkeeper in the Premier League, unless you have the clean sheet, your every mistake, every goal against is on this loop on Sky Sports News every 25 minutes, and you get to see the mistake again and again and again and again. And then people are texting it to you, and then people are writing about it. And then if you make 2 mistakes in a row, should they go buy a new this, that, or the other? If a striker hasn't scored in 2 games, so it's time. There's different pressure over in the Premier League. And so when you went and played for the United States, there was really no articles written ever about anything until the match report. And it was so, and then most of the journalists were trying to build the sport, so they wouldn't really kill you. So it was such like a nice experience in that manner. It's so just in the Premier League, it's just all on top of you. Now everyone's a journalist because you all have the smartphones. So,
what is it like during a major tournament for you as players? Dave, you played at Euro 2016 in France, and Brad, you went to 3 World Cups in the USA, France and Japan. What is it like during the tournament when you are just in the hotel? What sort of things do you get up to?
Basically, we're asking if there's any little jokes you'd like to pull on each other. Evil time.
You're there for a long time, or hopefully, if you get into the latter stage of the tournament. We got to the semi-finals, so we was away for a good 6-7 weeks, and it is a straight. I've got children at home and a wife at home, so you do miss your home comforts. But then at the same time, we had such a good team spirit that it was just like being on a holiday with your mates. That's how we find it when we was over in France. And yeah, we had sort of loads of pranks and things going on. We got split up into different groups at the start of the tournament, and we'd have a quiz sort of every other day, and then the losing team would have forfeits to do. And sometimes it would be you have to get up and sing a song, you have to do a dance, you have to phone somebody and put on an accent, all these different things. And horrifying at the time, but I look back and it was a good laugh. I remember I had to get up and sing on my own for 30 seconds. I had to dance on my own to no music for 30 seconds, all in Euro 2016, which is me out of my comfort zone massively. But it's funny watching it when it's not you. But yeah, we had a great time. We really did. Wicked team spirit, and I say it was just loads of fun.
Looking towards this World Cup in Qatar, we are going to start with USA. All 3 of you feel free to answer and ask questions of each other. But Brad, who do you feel are the most important players for USA heading into the World Cup?
Weston McKennie, if he's fit. I just saw that he was out for 15 days. He plays at Juventus. I coached him when I was with the under-19 national side. He's our best player. I know a lot of other names get more plaudits, but he's the main guy. If he's not fit, that's a big loss for us. Tyler Adams at Leeds, again in the middle of midfield. He's an important player. Giovanni Reina at Dortmund, he's an important player. Christian Pulisic at Chelsea, he's an important player. Musa in the center of midfield, an important player. And one of the unfortunate events for us is in goal. Our old number 1 was Zach Steffen, but he wasn't playing any football at Man City. He's now on loan at Middlesbrough, and he's playing. Matt Turner, who was playing all the time, he signed for Arsenal, and he's not playing. So that's a little bit of because that's going to be an important position for us, because we're not going to be bossing all the games that we play, and so our goalkeeper is going to be important. So I would keep our eyes on whatever goalkeeper plays, and sort of match winners if they're fit. Timothy Weah picked up a little knock as well, but like Timothy Weah, Giovanni Reina, Luca Della Torre might be out as well. So these are players that are all playing in Europe. Serginho Dest also, who's playing at AC Milan, he's just picked up an injury. So we'll have to wait and see who's going to be fit. But for me, the most important, if Weston McKennie's not there, then we have a big a big gaping hole in the center of our midfield.
I think for oh sorry, I was just going to say I think for Wales it's still Gareth Bale, even though he's say not as fit as what he maybe wants to be, but him and Aaron
His
Ramsey are
goal.
the match winners. Yes, so he still has those big moments, doesn't he?
Well, do you know that the player that he headed that over, Jack Elliott, he's 6'6",
Yeah.
almost 6'7".
Oh
That's how
wow.
high.
So he
That's
got
how
a
high.
yeah.
That's how high he leapt up.
Yeah.
Like,
So when Wales do have a moment like LAFC did, and you want one player to be on the end of it, it's Gareth Bale, and he'll still produce those moments. And he won't be the same player as he was in 2016, in particular when he was at the peak of his powers. But him and I'd say Aaron Ramsey, if we can get them fit and on the pitch, then they're two, I believe, world class players who can turn a game themselves. So let's hope they're fit and available.
Dave Jones, I just want to ask you about Aaron Ramsey, because obviously you were Cardiff manager a long time ago now, but what's Aaron like as a player, and what can we expect from him?
Well, we knew when we had Aaron at 15 that we had a special player on our hands, and it was just managing him because we knew we were going to give him his debut pretty soon. So we took him out of junior football, and he just trained with the first team. And I remember his parents coming to see us and saying that he wasn't playing games, but he was training with the likes of Robbie Fowler and Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank and Trevor Sinclair. He was training with top players every day. And we said to his parents that if they just trust us a little bit, in 2 or 3 months he will play. And we played him in a cup game, an FA Cup game against a non-league side that we'd drawn in the FA Cup called Chasetown, and he scored. So it was all about just protecting him a little bit, making sure that what we did was right with him. Because when you're a young player, I mean, you're still growing, you're still learning, and we didn't want to push him too much. But we noticed at such an early age that he was a special player. He had this motion. He used to glide past players with the ball, and it's a rare commodity sometimes within midfield players, and so it was just about protecting him. But once he broke into the team, he just grew in stature, and then went on to play for Arsenal. I actually wanted him to go to Manchester United because Fergie was going to let me have him back for the season. But I knew if he went to Arsenal, I knew Arsene Wenger would play him, and that proved the point. And then we were lucky enough to get him back when he broke his leg. Arsene trusted us to look after him and get him back to full fitness, which we did. It probably cost me a promotion because he took him back with about 10 games to go, and he was on fire at the time. So no, Aaron was a special player, and we knew that at such an early age. And when you get somebody like that, then all you've got to do is make sure that you look after him in the right way. And ours was just not overplaying him or overtraining him. But even all the players, the Hasselbanks and your Fowlers were saying to us, this kid's something special. And he's proved to be that. He's gone on and had an unbelievable career. And I think, this is the peak of it now, getting to a World Cup.
Dave, Gareth Bale has not played much football leading up to this World Cup, and Aaron Ramsey has started 4 games this season. Is that going to be a problem for Wales?
It's not ideal, but as long as they are reasonably fit and they're not pulling out of the squad, then I think it's still okay. What both of them have done when they played for Wales in recent years is they've come into games not being 100%, but whenever they do pull on that shirt, they can get a performance out of them. We saw that in the last Euros as well. They're key players, and players like that you don't necessarily need to have 100% because they can do the hardest things on a football field, which is create and score, and you don't necessarily need to be fit to do that. Whereas if it was myself personally, I know for me to be in the team, I have to be as fit as possible, run around, physically good. But when you have players who are that good, then they don't have to be 100. We'd love them to be, don't get me wrong, but they'll still play even if they're not.
Brad, what do USA need to do to make it out of the group?
Not lose the first game, that's for sure.
Yeah, not losing would be good.
Well, no, not lose the first one. If we lose against Wales, we play you first, right, Dave?
Yeah. Well, I got exactly the same thing as you. So
Yeah.
you need to pick up something in the first game.
Yeah, if we lose because you can't count on 3 points against England at all. We could beat England, but it would be like a remarkable result. And England, as Dave Jones said earlier, they're one of the favorites, and they are. So, and Iran is no pushover. That's not going to be, if you take Iran lightly, that's going to be a difficult game as well. So, we have to have all of our players fit. If we don't have our full complement of players, then we'll find it very difficult to get out of the group. We need Weston, we need Tyler, we need Christian Pulisic, we need Giovanni Reina. Those are 4 big ones, and we need Musa in the middle of the field. We have to have them fit, and we have to have a goalkeeper that's on point. It's a hard group. You know what worries me the most with our group is that not the England game so much, because every player knows England's going to be good. I don't think they realize, some of the players, I don't think they realize how good Wales are. And I would hate for them to go into a game against Wales thinking, oh, this is just Wales, we should be favorites here, because then we'll get beaten. So I hope they understand like exactly who it is they're playing against, because like Dave said earlier, Gareth Bale, he could be 50% fit. I played with Gareth for 2.5 or 3 years. You have Messi and you have Ronaldo. They're different class. Gareth's in that next group of players, and probably at his peak was probably that third guy. He is so good when he is fully fit. You can't stop him. You couldn't before. I mean, Dave, would you agree? I mean,
Yeah,
he was so good. And he's big. I mean, he's 6 foot. He's like 6'2". He's like wider than I am. He's strong. He's powerful. I think he actually came over to LAFC, and really as a maintenance building exercise to get ready for the World Cup. I really do, because then I saw bursts of his brilliance, and then he was out for about 3 weeks, but he was training on his own. I mean, and when he wants to be the best, he's unstoppable. And we don't have too many players in our squad that can stop a Gareth Bale.
Okay.
I think also, Brad, there's not many poor teams in the World Cup, is there? To get there is it takes a lot. So I think England's problem is underestimating the 3 teams that are in the group to begin with. I think if England play to their full potential, then yes, of course, everybody would expect them to win the game because of the players that they've got. But if football was that easy, we'd all be winning tournaments left, right, and centre. So I think all the groups are tougher than what people think, and Iran won't be an easy touch as well, because they I've watched them a few times, and they're playing some really good football. They've got a new manager in place and everything else. So it's all the games are difficult, but you would expect that if they play to their full potential, then yes, you could probably pick out, the 4 semi-finalists if every nation played to their best. But as you well know, the competitions don't always work out to what what people think is going to happen, really.
Do Iran pose a threat to any of you, and do you see a situation where they finish in the top 2?
Yeah,
Me?
Definitely are a threat, aren't they?
Yeah, everyone in your group is a threat. You've got to be at your best and as a manager and a coach, that's the thing. That's the one thing that you're always telling players when you play clubs or nations that you think are smaller than you. If you don't perform to the best of your ability, anybody is liable to win.
Yeah,
You've only got to look at the FA Cups. You look at the FA Cup. Why do small teams beat the Premiership sides and the Championship sides? It's because they're not playing to their full potential, and that can happen in any game. So I hope England approach every game in the manner that they're playing. The team opposites are one of the best. I would hate to think that any player would take the foot off the gas thinking that this game's easy.
I would say, just quickly, sorry, Iran. When you look at the world rankings, it is USA, Wales, and Iran are very, very close. I think they're all within 4 places of each other or 5 places of each other. So that shows you that it's very, very competitive.
I am just going to ask this question and leave it for the 3 of you to fight it out and argue for it. Which 2 teams out of Wales, USA, England, and Iran make it to the knockout stages, and why?
Let's just back off and leave these lot to it.
Debating time.
I mean, head or heart.
No bloodshed.
Yeah. I mean, I personally think, I would like to think, with the players that England have, that they're gonna get through. If not, then if they don't get out of the group, then it's a real letdown.
Me personally, I think England will get out of the group. I think it's between the USA and Wales, who's. I think that's.
But who, Dave? Who's second, Dave?
So you're the only one, Dave. Which one?
So I think that's the battle within the group. I would like to think, being an Englishman, that England are going to be there, but I think the USA and Wales are the 2 other teams that are going to be battling to try and get that second spot. I hope, and that's on a
former
personal
Cardiff
level.
manager. You've got to go with Wales, Dave. Surely.
No, but I was still an English manager performing in Wales. So
any holidays in America all the time as well.
No, I think it's on form and on players. You've got to say, England should get there, and I hope they do. But they're going to have to fight. They're going to have to perform to the best of their ability to get through. But on a personal level, I think that's going to be between Wales and the USA, who plunge for a second spot.
Again, this question will hopefully create some debate. But on the opening game of the tournament, I want to know your starting 11. I'm going to start with you, Dave. What is your Wales starting 11?
Okay, most of it picks itself, really. I think the goalkeeper's a tough one because Wayne Hennessy has never let Wales down. He's got the shirt at the moment, but he is not playing in the Premier League, whereas Danny Ward is playing every week at Leicester. So that'll be his. I think he'll go for Wayne Hennessy just because he's got the shirt and he's not letting down. Then I'd go for a back 3 of Ampadu, Joe Rodon, and Ben Davis. Wing backs of Nico Williams and Connor Roberts. And midfield would be Joe Allen and Aaron Ramsey. And then a front 3. This is where it gets really difficult because really there's 5 players who he's got to select from, and whoever gets left out of this front 3 will be very, very disappointed. So Gareth Bale will play. He'll occupy 1 slot. And then I think, me personally, I'd go for Dan James. I think he's a quick winger who Wales could use his pace. And again, he's never let Wales down. Now I'd go for Kiefer Moore, the Bournemouth striker up front, just again because he's something so different. He's a big physical striker, something else that Wales haven't got. So that would be my starting lineup. And it just means that Brennan Johnson, who's playing ever so well at Notts Forest, and Harry Wilson would be on the bench. They'd feel very hard done by left out, but Wales are in a good place that they got them sort of players to come off the bench.
Brad, what's your starting 11 for USA?
I would start with Turner in goal. If fit, Anthony Robinson at left back. If fit, Serginho Dest at right back. Walker Zimmerman at center back. Now, my favorite as the left center back, they probably won't be in the squad, so we have to wait to see. But I like Matt Miazga or Jonathan Brooks there. But so that would be my choice. But I'm not even sure if they're going to make the trip. In the midfield, I would have McKinney, Adams, and Musa. I would have Giovanni Reina on one side up front and Christian Pulisic on the other. And I would have Jordan Pfolk as the number 9. That's who I would go with. Now,
oh, Brad, that's a lot stronger than I was imagining. That's got me nervous for the first game.
Well, that's what I would do, but I'm not
strong team.
Yeah, but I'm not sure, Dave, like if some of those players will even be chosen for the squad. We have to wait. Like it's been interesting. Like Jonathan Brooks has been left out completely, just cast aside. Matt Miazga came from Chelsea over here to Cincinnati, and from him coming over here, Cincinnati didn't lose a game for 13 games, made the playoffs, and then lost 1-0 on a to the eventual to Philadelphia, who eventually finished second position, who lost to LAFC. So I don't really know what he's persevered with Aaron Long, who's really struggled recently. And I think Aaron's fast, but not explosive, and he's not as explosive as some of the players he'll be playing against, and he relies on it too much. So I that's my a little worry. But that team that I just named, if they all play and they're fit, that's
the wide areas in particular. Very strong.
Really
Fullbacks,
good
wingers.
And you could have Timothy Weah come off the bench. If Luca de la Torre is fit, he could come off the bench. But we have, if you'd notice, we have in like 6 positions what ifs. I don't know if they're going to be fit. And then what the difference with us in England, maybe probably similar to you, is if we have our first players injured, there's a decent drop off to the next one who comes in. Whereas I think that's where England has better squad capabilities than Wales and the US. Is I think the next one that they bring in is of a higher standard.
Finally, Dave Jones, what is your starting 11 for England?
Well, I might surprise a few people now. I would start with Pope in goal. I would have Pope in goal for me. I think at right back, you've got a choice between Trippier and Trent Arnold, I think. And then centre backs, I would go Kyle Walker and Stones for pace. I don't think in the World Cup you need to have big centre halves, out and out centre halves. So I would go with Stones and Walker, and at left back I would have Shaw. I would have 2 holding midfield players. Hopefully he's going to be fit as the boy Phillips from Man City, and I would have Rice from West Ham. And then you've got to have Harry Kane. Sure, you've got to have Kane up front. I would either play Mount or a player behind, whether it be Foden or it be Grealish. But I would certainly put Foden and Sterling in. So I would go for pace and power in the first game. I think, and as Brad says, we have such a variety of players we can play. I mean, I would even put in. I would bring in someone like Barnes from Leicester, someone like that. But I would always go with pace. I think pace is a commodity that people don't like in any tournament. Within that team that I've selected, there's probably only the goalkeeper that doesn't have any pace. The rest of them are fly machines, and I think that's what causes problems to any opposition. So I don't think we need. I take Maguire by all accounts. He's out and out centre half, but I think we can get away with it with the likes of Walker and Stones because they're such good players on the ball as well.
Dave and Brad, you have both reached the knockout stages of a major tournament. How does knockout football change from playing in the group stages, and what are your memories of it?
For me, it was just amazing because we were apart from the very first game, so we got through the group and we won the first game, which me and Brad have just said how important that's going to be. But once we got out of the group, we played Northern Ireland in the last 16, and that was a real nervy game. It was one where we thought that we were probably favourites for, and we felt a little bit pressure. We didn't play particularly well, but then the other two games after that, Belgium, massive underdogs. So no pressure on us. Just go out there, enjoy it. Everyone's expecting to go home afterwards. The chances of us beating Belgium are a little to nothing. And then we managed to do that. And then Portugal again, who went on to win it. No one was expecting us to win. So there's no pressure. It's just about going out and enjoying it as much as possible. And for us, because it's our first tournament, we've exceeded expectations and the fans were just so happy. But it is a strange feeling when you do get in those knockout games, because all of a sudden you're thinking I could literally be going home tomorrow, or I could be staying for another week, and it's a strange scenario to be in.
So in '94, we made it through a group with a very good Swiss side, a Colombian side that was one of the favorites, and Romania, who ended up I think finishing the semifinals. And we made it out, and we had to play Brazil, and that's an interesting one because you're on home soil in 1994, and you're playing against Brazil with an absolutely mega star-studded team. So going into it, I'm not so sure. We thought we weren't sure how well we would compete, to be honest with you, because they are so good. They had Leonardo was sent off just before halftime. And I remember it was a terrible injury. I fractured Tab Ramos's skull in the incident. Yes. But Boromir Milutinovic, our head coach, he came in at halftime, and it was 0-0. And we were surprised we got to 0-0 at halftime. But we're up. We have a man advantage, and the first thing he says to us, he goes, all right, 0-0. We're at home. We're playing against Brazil. We're a man up. Now all things are just about level because they were so good. So that was different. Then in 2002, we got drawn against Mexico, which is our big rival. And the Mexicans had always said we would never be able to beat them in a big competition, never be able to beat them on neutral soil, even though we beat them in the Copa America in 1995 in penalties.
Sounds like you're underestimating.
Yeah, and
usually gets people kicked in the butt,
and we beat them
and hard,
and we beat them 2-0. And that was but that was fantastic because we had the World Cup, and the pressure was off because we made it through the group. But then the pressure was right back on because we really wanted to beat Mexico badly, and we did. And so we had now we were sort of the kings of CONCACAF. For a short time, because the Mexican, for years, decades and decades and decades, Mexico has been better than us. So it was a fantastic feeling. And then we went on to play Germany. It was, so that came down to more of a no pressure situation, and we played really well on the day.
What would a successful World Cup be for all your countries?
Well, it's an easy one for me. For England, is to win it. I think we've been to a semi-finals, we've been to a final. I think the next stage is to win it, and we are one of the favourites. And if we play to our capabilities, then there's no reason why they're not capable of winning the World Cup. So for me, success is winning it.
For Wales, it's to get out of the group. I think that's the big thing. If we can get out of the group, then that's a huge success, and then we can just really enjoy it. But again, there'll be no disgrace for a country the size of Wales to not make it out. Just to be at the World Cup's an achievement. But the last two tournaments, we've got out of the group, so hopefully we'll do that again.
For the US, at this stage, it's getting out of the group. The only caveat I would add to it is if we do make it out of this group, and I've said it many times, and our players are fit, then I don't think we're a team that many would want to play against, because we'll be the underdogs against pretty much everybody on paper. But if you see that the starting 11 I put out there, if we're all fit, we're good. So,
and hey, you know what they say? Everyone loves an underdog.
We've got a few more questions. That's okay, guys?
Looking ahead to the next World Cup in 2026, and I guess this is a question for you, Brad. The World Cup is going to be held in the USA. What sort of World Cup can we expect, and how will it be different from 1994 when USA last hosted it?
Oh, it'd be a lot different because our fan base is far more educated on football now. You have the sport has grown, as Dave alluded to earlier, when he travels over here. The sports. I didn't even recognize it when I moved back here in 2015. The landscape, the training grounds, the stadiums, the academies, the social media, the television programs, the dedicated youth. I think we're either the number one or the number two largest participated sport in the United States now amongst our grassroots. So it's a completely different landscape. So I think when the World Cup comes here, and between Canada and Mexico, you're going to see in most every city where there's games and where there's not games, that people will be in the bars, the restaurants, on the streets watching them. So I think however many people were over here for the World Cup in '94, I think you can at least double, if not triple, the fan participation in all the cities for 2026.
For me, Brad, I think the biggest difference will be also this World Cup. I think it's 50-mile radius where all the stadiums are in. I think when it's being held in the USA in 4 years' time, I think the traveling is going to be a little bit different to what it is in Qatar at this moment.
Yeah. Well, and you also have different weather, whereas in Qatar it's going to be obviously the same. You go from dry
very
climates,
very wet
in the smog, and then if you're up in Canada, then you might even get if you play in the evening time or earlier on, you might even get like a coolish breeze. So there's going to be different pockets of weather during that World Cup.
We would like to finish with a quick World Cup quiz. All the questions have a number as the answer, so we will ask a question and you have to give us a number. The person closest wins a point. Are you ready?
Competition time. You ready?
I'm rubbish at quizzes. Go ahead.
Don't worry, this is a subject you know very well.
Question 1. Qatar hosts of this year's World Cup, but what are they currently ranked in the world according to the FIFA rankings?
No Googling.
Definitely
no
Googling.
Cheating, or we'll be on you like a goalkeeper, like the referee.
52.
Oh, that's
I'll go 100. I'm going nice round number.
Okay.
I'll go. How many are there? There's 183, 190, or something like that. I'm gonna say. Well, you did. I'll split it. I'll say 77.
And the answer is 50.
So we all know who won this round.
Wow. So you've got who's next to you in your car, Dave? Someone.
Only my wife.
You have a stat.
You're not
next
cheating,
to
are you, Mr.
He said
Jones?
49.
Question 2. Brad Friedel has been to 3 World Cups, but how many goals have been scored past him at World Cups?
Whoa.
This will be fun.
Me and Dave should go first because Brad should.
Well, Dave.
Thanks for that, Dave.
So you got like the group, didn't you? So I'm going to say 20.
14.
Wait, against me.
How many goals? Yeah, have you conceded at the World Cup against you personally?
But just me, 8.
Yep.
Yes.
And the answer is 7.
You win this round, Bradley.
8.
Yeah.
I've done you a disservice there, Brad. Sorry.
Oh, he should. Oh, hang on. He should win it.
Did you not? Yeah, but I went a bit high.
But I'm obviously a bit older now because I forgot one.
Question 3. Dave Edwards scored 3 goals for Wales, but we want to know how many minutes of international football did Dave play between scoring his first goal for Wales and his second goal for Wales?
This is going to be a trick question. He's probably scored in the same game. It's going to be like a minute or something like that.
I'm trying to think now.
Dave, if you don't get this right, because I have no clue. How many minutes in between goals? His first and his second. He's counting right there. So
I'm trying to think in. Yeah, I don't know how many games it was. I'm trying to think in years. So it's not that close.
I think he scored 2 games on the trot.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
what do you?
I think he scored. I think he's trying to throw as a curveball there. I think 48.
You're 48 minutes. I'll go 270 minutes.
I'm going to go more. I'm going to say 400 minutes.
The answer is 381 minutes.
So who got that one?
Edwards was very close.
He just got his
I
own.
was just trying to make you feel good, Dave.
I said they're a good year apart, I think they were. Maybe a bit longer. So.
Right, you've all got 1 each. There's 2 questions left.
Michael Owen is England's youngest ever goal scorer at World Cup when he scored at the 1998 World Cup against Romania. But we want to know how old was he in years and days when he scored.
And days.
Challenging.
We're evil.
I was playing with him at the time.
So you might get this one.
Well, I told you I'm rubbish at quizzes. So thinking back, I think he was he 17 or 18? It was 98. So 97, he came on at 16. You're 17 or 18 years of age. I'm going to say 17 and 220 days.
I'll say 18 and 100 days.
I'll say 17 and 250.
Okay, and the answer is 18 years and 190 days.
There, you got it, Dave.
So Dave Edwards is winning. One question.
I knew he was 18. I saw a program with him yesterday talking about it. He was 18.
Oh, he cheated.
It's not cheat. It isn't cheating.
Right, last question.
The top goal scorer for the USA at World Cups in London, Donovan. For England, it is Gary Lineker, and for Wales, it is Ivor Allchurch. But how many goals have they scored at World Cups combined?
How many does Lineker have?
I was so evil.
All right.
20.
You're 20. How many goals does your fella have in Wales?
We only qualified once.
Bradley, who are you chatting to?
No, but I'm not chatting to anybody. You can see.
I heard you talking to somebody.
No, I was talking to the camera. I'm not talking.
No, you weren't.
Yeah. I'm not
I
talking
heard that.
I'm in the United States. Nobody knows that Wales even played in a World Cup. Come on. Oh, you said 20?
Yeah, I might have been over there, maybe. I think Gary Lineker scored in.
I'll
say
boots
in a few times.
I'll say 16. I don't know. Oh, I can't hear him.
Sorry, Dave. Say it again.
So it's easy for me. I'll go 18.
What's the answer?
The answer is 17.
It's in between.
Donovan has 5, Lineker has 10, and Allchurch has 2.
So Brad and Dave Jones, you got a point each. So you all drew.
So we all drew. There we go. And no, I had no help from the audience. The only people here know nothing about football, I assure you.
I would just like to say a big thank you again to everyone who listens to our podcast. We really appreciate it. Please continue to leave reviews and pass our podcast on to your friends and family. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. It has been a pleasure to chat to the three of you. We really enjoyed speaking with you, and it means so much to us as a school to be able to have the opportunity to speak with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
Nice to see you guys.
Yeah. Cheers, guys. We'll see you soon.
Thanks.